The egoic lotus 17776. We must now deal with the subject of the causal body on its own plane from the point of view of fire. We have studied it briefly from the more ordinary angle, and in materialistic terms, considering it as a vehicle of rarefied substance, containing within itself the seventh principle of each of the two lower sheaths of the microcosm, and the mental unit. This latter is that which embodies the first aspect in manifestation, and which is analogous to the first logoic aspect, one that in this solar system does not come to full demonstration. I would like to point out here that in studying the solar system as the physical manifestation of a solar logos, we are investigating a. The physical permanent atom of a solar logos, as contained within the logoic causal body on its own plane. B. The seven types of force, or the seven logoic spirally within that permanent atom. This, if realized, gives a new outlook upon the subject of plane vibration. See the close correspondence between the planes, and the seven spirally in the permanent atom of a solar logos. We have touched upon these spirally and their function very briefly, and can now approach the question of the egoic ray and the fire of mind from the subjective point of view, or in terms of fire. 1. Centers or wheels of energy. A. Centers of force. We shall again reach the clarity of vision desirable, if we study the subject of monadic development from the angle of vision of the human unit. It has been taught in many occult textbooks that man has 7 centers of force, or 10, according to some calculations. That 3 of these centers are paramount, and eventually synthesize the other 4, or absorb their force or energy. This produces their eventual obscuration, or their passing out of manifestation. They occultly die. This is paralleled in the logoic centers, the planetary schemes, which also in due course of time pass into obscuration, and transmit their energy to the major 3 schemes. The 3 main centers in the microcosm are the head, the heart and the throat. 1. The head center, the monad will spirit. 2. The heart center, the ego love consciousness. 3. The throat center, the personality activity matter. It will, therefore, be apparent that just as in man these centers are related to the threefold spiritual man in his total development, so the 3 types of centers, microcosmic or macrocosmic, come gradually more and more under the vitalizing power of one of the 3 aspects of the logos. These centers are recognized also as focal points of active force, manifesting to the vision of the clairvoyant as fiery wheels or the flaming petals of a lotus. B. The causal body. Monadic heart center. In studying the egoic body, it should be remembered that the causal body is the correspondence in the monadic manifestation to the heart center. It is a flaming wheel of fire within the monadic auric egg, which embraces the 5 planes of monadic manifestation. It is also seen as the 12-petaled lotus. Of these 12 petals, the innermost 3 are unrevealed, or are embryonic, and hence the causal body is frequently considered as a 9-petaled lotus, or as a wheel of fire with only 9 spokes or whorls. This is essentially true as regards the evolutionary process, but when the man has succeeded in awakening, or unfolding the 9 petals, or in arousing the fire of the 9 spokes, or whorls, which is practically consummated at the 3 major initiations, the inner 3 are revealed. They respond to the monadic vibration, to the aspect of pure spirit. It is the stimulation or revelation of these inner petals, by the one initiator at the 3rd and 4th initiations, which brings about the final conflagration and the blazing up of the causal body with the subsequent liberation of the central positive life or fire. 2. The 12-petaled egoic lotus solar fire is dual. It is the fire of matter, or substance, and the fire of mind blended. This makes man the 6-pointed star of light, for each of these fires is triple. The fire of mind is also in essence dual, bringing in another triplicity, thus making the 9. When the man has awakened the 9 fires, and has unfolded the 9 petals, and when he has received the stimulus, which is imparted at initiation, through being brought into conscious contact with the electric spark of his own particular heavenly man, they all blend and merge. The inner 3 which complete the 12, and which are concerned with the final, and essentially spiritual stages, of his evolution, are really related more intimately to the evolution of the heavenly man, and are connected with the stimulus which he receives himself in contacting the logoic electric spark, or the pure spirit aspect of the logos. It should here be noted that this ninefold development is hinted at in the secret doctrine in the various places where HPB deals with the Chimeras 17,877 or the heavenly men, of whom the microcosm is a reflection. She calls them the lords of knowledge, the lords of love and the lords of sacrifice. Each of them is a 9-petaled lotus in the logoic body. They are the flaming wheels, and in their various names, as found in the secret doctrine, may be discovered the clue to the mystery. Let us realize this clearly, nevertheless, as regards the microcosm, and later extend the idea to the heavenly men. Let us picture the 9-petaled egoic lotus, the heart center in the monadic consciousness, unfolding each of its petals in groups of 3 upon the 3 subplanes of the higher mental. Their unfoldment is worked out through the evolutionary process, undergone on the 3 planes in the 3 worlds, or within the 3 halls of ignorance, of learning, and of wisdom. A. First group of petals. Knowledge petals. 1. The petal of knowledge for the physical plane. Through the breaking of the law, and the ensuing suffering, the price of ignorance is paid, and knowledge is achieved. This unfoldment is brought about through physical plane experience. 2. The petal of love for the physical plane unfolds through physical relationships, and the gradual growth of love from love of self to love of others. 3. The petal of sacrifice for the physical plane. This unfoldment is brought about through the driving force of circumstances, and not of free will. It is the offering up of the physical body upon the altar of desire, low desire to begin with, but aspiration towards the end, though still desire. As man in the early stages of his evolution is polarized on the physical, much of this is undergone unconsciously and without any realization of what is being consummated, but the result in the causal body is seen in the 2-fold increase of heat or of activity. The physical permanent atom becomes radioactive or a radiant point of fire. The lower 3 petals become vibrant, and begin to unfold until fully developed. B. Second group of petals. Love petals. 1. The petal of knowledge, for the astral plane. Unfoldment is brought about by the conscious balancing of the pairs of opposites, and the gradual utilization of the law of attraction and repulsion. The man passes out of the hall of ignorance where, from the egoic point of view, he works blindly and begins to appreciate the effects of his physical plane life. By a realization of his essential duality, he begins to comprehend causes. 2. The petal of love for the astral plane. Unfoldment is brought about through the process of gradually transmuting the love of the subjective nature, or of the self within. This has a dual effect and works through onto the physical plane in many lives of turmoil, of endeavor and of failure as a man strives to turn his attention to the love of the real. 3. The petal of sacrifice for the astral plane. Unfoldment is brought about by the attitude of man, as he consciously endeavors to give up his own desires for the sake of his group. His motive is still somewhat a blind one, and still colored by the desire for a return of that which he gives and for love from those he seeks to serve, but it is of a much higher order than the blind sacrifice to which a man is driven by circumstances, as is the case in the earlier unfoldment. As this 3-fold enlightenment or unfoldment proceeds, again a dual result is seen. the astral permanent atom comes into full activity and radiance, as regards 5 of its spirally, and the 2 atoms of the physical and the astral planes are equally vibrant. The 3 petals of the central ring of the egoic lotus come also into full unfoldment, and the heart center of the monad is seen as a wheel of fire with 6 of its spokes in full display of energy and rapidly rotating. See third group of petals, sacrifice petals. 1. The petal of knowledge for the mental plane. Its unfoldment marks the period wherein the man consciously utilizes all that he has gained, or is gaining under the law for the definite benefit of humanity. Each of the groups of petals is distinguished by a predominant coloring. Knowledge, on the physical plane, with the coloring of the other 2 subsidiary. Love, on the astral plane, with the light of sacrifice weaker in tone than the other 2, which practically show forth in equal brilliancy. On the mental plane, the light of sacrifice comes to its full display, and all that is seen is colored by that light. 2. The petal of love on the mental plane is unfolded through the conscious steady application of all the powers of the soul to the service of humanity with no thought of return nor any desire for reward for the immense sacrifice involved. 3. The petal of sacrifice for the mental plane demonstrates as the predominant bias of the soul, as seen in the series of many lives spent by the initiate prior to his final emancipation. He becomes in his sphere the great sacrifice. This stage can be seen objectively to the eye of the clairvoyant as dual in effect. A. The mental unit becomes a radiant point of light. Its force spirally transmit force with intense rapidity. B. The 3 higher petals unfold, and the 9-petaled lotus is seen perfected. The causal body is then expressed in terms of fire, a blazing center of heat, radiating to its group warmth and vitality. Within the periphery of the egoic wheel can be seen the 9 spokes rotating with intense rapidity, and after the 3rd initiation becoming 4th dimensional, or the wheels turn upon themselves. 17,978 in the midst, forming a certain geometrical triangle, differing according to the ray of the monad, can be seen 3 points of fire, or the permanent atoms and the mental unit, in all their glory. At the center can be seen a central blaze of glory growing in intensity as the 3 inner petals respond to the stimulation. When the fire of matter, of fire by friction, becomes sufficiently intense. When the fire of mind of solar fire, which vitalizes the 9 petals, becomes equally fierce, and when the electric spark at the innermost center blazes out and can be seen, the entire causal body becomes radioactive. Then the fires of substance, the vitality of the permanent atoms, escape from the atomic spheres, and add their quota to the great sphere in which they are contained. The fire of mind blends with its emanating source, and the central life escapes. This is the great liberation. The man, in terms of human endeavor, has achieved his goal. He has passed through the 3 halls, and in each has transferred that which he gained therein to the content of his consciousness. He has in ordered sequence developed and opened the petals of the lotus, first opening the lower 3, which involves a process covering a vast period of time.